All right, guys, it's winter again in the Colorado Rockies, and I've got my Air Force pilot survival knife here, and we're going to put this to some work now. In my previous discussion of this knife, I went over some things about the design of this knife, and that a big part of it was to deal with egressing from an aircraft wreckage, and getting out of that airplane. And there's a lot of different videos on this knife, and they talk about the sawback, and that's going to cut through the fuselage, and maybe, but not likely. And I say this from experience because I've talked about in that previous video, I've actually put damage on aircraft, and this knife is not really going to cut through it. You kind of imagine you're just sawing along and sawing a nice big hole and walking out of it. That's not really the main purpose of this knife, to get out of an aircraft wreckage. It's mostly for pushing and hooking some stuff and getting some loose debris out of your way. Yeah, you can do a sawing action and if you have to, but it's not like it's gonna really saw through an aircraft fuselage very well. But I don't have an aircraft wreckage here today to work on. Those days for me are past, many years ago, but I do have a vast wilderness around me now in this part of my life. And once you make it out of your aircraft, out of your harness, and you're now on the ground, and you've got to survive and you've got to fight off the bad guy, if this is the knife you have, then now you're going to do some different tasks with it. So keeping in mind the design and function of this knife, it's not made to be a perfect survival knife because it has to do other things also. So it is a good overall design for everything it has to do. As an outdoor wilderness knife, it would not be my first choice, but it will take care of a lot of the tasks that you need to do. One thing, if I'm going to have a wilderness survival knife, I would rather have a thicker, heavier tip. This tip is kind of slight. This is kind of, the clip is kind of a false edge. I could sharpen that up. I don't think I would. It's plenty stabby without sharpening that up. And I think if you did have to deal with the enemy with this knife, you'd have no problems doing that. However, I would recommend that you take care with that tip and some heavy duty tip work in the wilderness, as it's more designed for dealing with the enemy than it is, doing some rough wilderness stuff with that tip. But this is a 1095 knife. It does have a low HRC. It is made to be tough. And once you're on the ground, and if this is the knife you have, you can do quite a bit of tasks with it. It does have a rather thick edge for strength, but it can still work wood fairly well. Get rid of these feathers I made earlier. And this does sharpen up easily. But if you need to do some woodwork with it, it'll do it. And you can sharpen it up to your liking. You can thin out the edge, and I am in the process of thinning the edge a little bit more, just so I can do some better woodwork, since I don't have a lot of aircraft wreckage to deal with or enemies. So I think I'm gonna use it mostly as a outdoor style knife. And as you can see, yeah, you're not going to have any problem making feathers with this knife. Not at all. Yeah, it'll do it. It'll certainly get the job done. It's not really a chopping knife. I don't think you're going to do a lot of chopping with it. Of course, if you were Had the chance to make a fire, and probably not recommended if your enemy's looking for you, but you would want to deal with some firewood and maybe prepare some kindling. Now this is a piece of pretty gnarly spruce. It's got some knots in it, but I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of batoning, see how this knife holds up. I think it'll do rather well. Right through those knots, not a problem. One thing you have to keep in mind about this knife is the tang. You see where the tang goes into the hilt? That tang is less than 1/2 inch thick, so it's a stick tang. So you have to keep that in mind. It is a good, tough 1095, but still you don't want to get too crazy with it. You don't want to bust your knife if you're trying to survive in the wilderness. But as you can see, it'll definitely do some batoning work. Let me take a bigger piece of, and a knottier piece of spruce. That's a solid piece of spruce. Let's see, and you can hear that sound. It does have the customary loose hilt, but that doesn't bother me. It doesn't matter, it's on there, it's not going to come off. Let's get through this tougher piece of spruce here, see what happens. I think it'll go through it okay. It's got quite a few knots in it. Oh yeah, not a problem. So you may have to do stuff like this with this knife. Maybe or maybe not, but it's good to know that it can do it if you need to do it. Yeah. Took care of that fairly easily. Knife has not bent. Everything's still straight, in good shape. Yeah, real good. So, yeah, it's got a slight tip. You're not going to go tip crazy with this thing. You could go crazy on the enemy if you had to, but as far as plowing it into some wood and bending it over, you know, you may bend it or do some damage, but if you had to do some cutting and prepare game and stuff like that, it'll do it. Not a problem. They really put a lot of thought into this knife. I know it seems like a simple knife, and it is, but there is a lot of thought into this knife. And one of the things I like about it, I mentioned in my other video, is the way the leather stacked handle is made to index. So if you use it as a fighting knife, when you grab that knife, you want to know which way the blade is. So being able to index it like that is a fairly good thing. Fairly good thing. Yeah, so let's test out the saw back. And again, that's not meant for a wood saw. You can notch with it and you can do some stuff with it, but that's not its primary purpose. So let's take a piece of pine here and kind of notch right through this bark. You know, if you were making traps, making other different camp items, the saw back may help you. And it's doing pretty good, actually. Just that little time, I got pretty good notch in there. Yeah, pretty good size notch, not so bad. So it does well there. And it cuts well. Yeah. Nice curls. Fine curls there. It'll do it. It'll do it. So yeah, guys, Pilot survival knife, fairly tough knife. It'll take care of your needs. Is it your ideal outdoor wilderness survival knife? No. But like I said, remember, it's designed to do other tasks also. But I really like this knife. So thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate y'all. Bye.